answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The ineptitude of the California political class. Will that spell change once the fires have been extinguished? It's one of the questions. Matt Hennessy, writing in the Wall Street Journal about California, about Los Angeles specifically, being an elaborate progressive trap, both in terms of the physical topography of LA as well as sort of the metaphysical culture there. No, it wasn't climate change. Fossil fuels and fracking doomed the Pacific Palisades. Carbon capitalism signed Malibu's death warrant. Time's up, Exxon. Face the music, Chevron. Wounded Mother Earth is coming to collect. That explanation doesn't add up. Santa Ana winds have whipped up wildfires in Southern California since before recorded time. What's new is that 10 million people have settled in L.A. County since 1900. All live cheek by jowl in houses powered by electricity and natural gas. They get their yards cleared year-round by gasoline-powered mowers and blowers. They have heated pools, fire pits, and outdoor smokers. But the climate change explanation doesn't have to add up. Adding up isn't the point. Shifting blame is. A fire trap might be the deadliest kind of all. You often don't know you're in one until it's too late. Angelenos won't be able to calculate their chances of escape this time until the smoke clears for real. They should be careful not to wait too long. By spring, the chaparral in the hills will grow back and the citrus trees will bloom again. The healing will begin. California sunshine will nurture a new raft of progressive promises about the glorious future resistance to big oil, greedy insurance companies, and Donald Trump. Virtue signals will light up the sky, like Klieg lights at a Hollywood premiere. I'm warning you, don't fall for it. Not again. It's a trap. But can the left ever resist falling for the same trap over and over again? I note Julia Roberts is publicly decrying the looters. You know, the same Julia Roberts that, like Newsom and Kamala, opposed the proposition that passed by popular vote to recriminalize burglaries under $1,000. So, you know, maybe
they didn't seem to mind looters during BLM.
Well, that was those were symbolic takings. That was righteous.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's the point. Is now when it's their home, when it's their community. Yeah, it matters, and the disconnect between the larger population and their political leadership. Now, the smart politician, these, politicians, so many are shapeshifters. The smart politician will recalibrate, but many are so far gone, they're so far out over the edge on neo-Marxism that it's going to be very difficult for them to, or they're such ideologues they don't want to. And that could create fissures that provide political opportunity. It's hard to say. For more on this topic and others, particularly in advance of Monday's inauguration, considering her long-standing reporting on the Secret Service, pleased to be joined by Susan Crabtree. She is RealClearPolitics.com's national political correspondent, and she's also the co-author of a new book, quite timely, Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's wonderful to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. Per your review of California, what is your level of optimism about the California residents having to endure this horror? What their ultimate reaction could be in terms of the possibility of saying we need to make a change in how we govern ourselves here?
Well, I think we're all sitting ducks right now, and there's red flag alerts across Southern California, including in San Diego, where I live, and we're asking questions about are our reservoirs filled while Gavin Newsom is approving in a special session $50 million to Trump-proof California, and then just said as an afterthought, well, maybe we should deal with the wildfires in this special session. Just yesterday, he said that.
Oh, my God.
I'm not kidding you. And even journalists were asking him whether they were still going to go forward with this special session and if they thought it was the right timing, considering the fire NATO that is taking place in Los Angeles, wiping out communities. I spoke to a friend of mine who said her whole basically history had been wiped out. Her family home, the high school and the elementary school she went to, and the synagogue she went to. They're all been wiped out. And the only thing that's standing is Rick Caruso's mall because he hired private firefighters. So my book, Fool's Gold, has an entire chapter devoted to wildfires and the reckless disregard that our government and Gavin Newsom has paid to this issue. The Newsom and other Democrats like to say that they care about climate change. They even blame these fires on climate change. But if they cared about climate change, they would care to do something preventative about these fires, including dealing with the water issue that Trump so rightly mentioned about they're protecting a delta smelt rather than providing, looking at the water, open up the water reservoirs in Northern California and to help the farmers in the Central Valley and also Southern California that would release a lot of water. But they simply didn't do the most basic things. The red flag warnings were happening, as you know, from the National Weather Service over the weekend, and the reservoir to protect the Pacific Palisades area, one of the most beautiful places to live, probably on this earth, was not filled. And the person in charge of that was a woman, her last name is Quinones, and she works for the Department of Water, basically. It's the
Power and water.
Power and water,
Yeah, power and water. Excuse me, and she makes $750,000.
And she's prior experience, I should say, before getting that job in water management. But how in the world did your police or your fire chief, Crowley, she said she did not know that reservoir was empty. She did not know that it was under construction.
That's right.
That's her
and
job,
that
isn't
is,
it?
and even when the woman in charge of it, who actually worked for PG&E beforehand, which is the utility that is so in tight with the Democrats across the state, including Newsom. Newsom received $700,000 from PG&E until all the wildfires, in terms of his political donations and his wife's documentary films. I'm not even kidding you, about gender justice. They were held at PG&E headquarters. This is a utility that's caused 1,500 wildfires. But yes, she worked at PG&E beforehand, so she didn't know. She knew everything about electricity, but she didn't know anything about water storage. And that is, when she was asked by the public, when she was talking to the public, and within the first 48 hours of this fire breaking out, she blamed the hydrants went dry or didn't have enough water pressure because of these water tanks went dry. They were fully filled, she said. She was emphasizing that those tanks were full. But what she failed to acknowledge, purposely I think, is that the reservoir that was linked to those water tanks, the one that had 117 million gallons of water that was supposed to have 117 million gallons of water, was dry for 10 months. Has been dry since February and offline. That is, to me, nearly criminal behavior to keep that information from the public when directly asked about why the hydrants went dry. And she did not tell Crowley, and that's the fire chief. The fire chief, we are beside ourselves out here in California. It could happen to any one of us. So excuse my anger, and I'm just absolutely, what happened was incomprehensible. And people have lost everything. And the insurance situation, I can talk to you about that too.
Well, right, and this just seems like the confluence of all of ineptitude and policies that just run completely afoul of reality. Just for example, as a lead-in, here was Biden talking as part of his, exit tour about his record on border security.
Look, let's get something in mind about the border. When I became president, the numbers came way down, number one. Number two, we had a circumstance where I pushed very hard for a bipartisan agreement to put more people on the border, more Secret Service agents. And guess what? He's on the phone saying, don't do it, make me look bad.
More Secret Service agents on the border, and border numbers came down significantly when he became president. Of course, the latter is not true, and the former shows that he does not have the capacity to stand trial or the capacity to be president of the United States, which everybody also knows. But this is a guy who's backed up 100% by Gavin Newsom to this day. To this day, when he made the visit to California, this is somebody who Gavin Newsom embraced those policies and continues, as you said in the special session, to focus on California taxpayer money for people in this country illegally. Meanwhile, Californians who've lost their homes are waiting for a $770 check from Biden. And so they watched this. They watched the looting and incentivized in part by people who in public office and to some extent the constituents who embrace this idea of decriminalizing burglary. I mean, so it's like the public safety and the crime piece, the public safety on the fire and water management piece, the general ineptitude. Adam Schiff, as you tweeted out, doesn't know the difference between a reservoir and a tank. I mean, it's just like over and over again from every angle on every issue, and you wonder if this doesn't penetrate, what will.
Absolutely, California did experience a rightward shift during the November election because of the crime. Now we have the wildfires on top of the crime issue. If Californians don't wake up, then it's their own fault. I mean, the majority. But there were 6 million Californians who voted for Trump compared to 9.3 estimated voted for Kamala. You are negating the opinion of 6 million Californians when you pass this bill that authorizes $50 million to Trump-proof California. When on the crime issue, it's just seriously unbelievable. He is saying that that they're lying about his position on looting. He was one of the first people, Gavin Newsom, to endorse the George Gascon authored Proposition 47 that basically made felonies misdemeanors, looting felonies misdemeanors, as long as you don't collect $950 worth of stuff. Now the voters completely rejected that in November. And so Gavin Newsom and his supermajority of Democrats in the state legislature are standing on a very weak platform right now, passing this $50 million, authorizing $50 million in taxpayer dollars to fight Donald Trump and basically more lawfare against Donald Trump.
That's ridiculous.
And it's completely misguided. And, there are celebrities that are starting to speak out. Justine Bateman. There are plenty of others. Mel Gibson obviously already was a Republican. But there are people that are starting to wake up in California. and they better do so quickly, because this issue of California's wildfires, I've been screaming about it from the mountaintop for years. I've spent a year and a half investigating all of California's problems, and I devoted an entire chapter to this issue. All the things that they talk about with climate change, all the carbon emissions over the last 20 years were already eradicated by the wildfire and that spew toxins into the air and across the West, not only in California. It's not contained to California. California is literally polluting the whole West with these wildfires, and they already eradicated all the carbon emissions that they say they've gained over the last 2 decades, according to a UCLA study. And Stanford University have done these studies. So they say they care about climate change, but they do nothing to prevent these wildfires. In fact, Gavin Newsom cut $100 million from the wildfire prevention budget in his budget because he's in a deficit, because he had a $100 million surplus, and then now he's in a $50 million deficit. So he's cutting wildfire prevention. I mean, this has got to be a reckoning in California. I truly hope it is.
Before we let you go, just because you've done so much reporting over the years on the Secret Service, the preparations for Trump's inauguration on January 20th and sort of the state of the Secret Service pending a leadership change when Trump is inaugurated. What's your review of where things stand going into Monday?
I'm working on a story on today about this, and the Secret Service, Matt McCool, who heads the Washington field office, said that they have things under control, but they're facing the highest threat, basically an unprecedented threat, after the 2 assassination attempts. He said, they're going to have 250,000 ticketed guests there, and they're going to have 25,000 Secret Service and law enforcement, mainly law enforcement and military, helping out there's 7,000 National Guard that are being called. He said that he's very confident. I talked to Secret Service rank and file agents, and they say they are concerned, not so much because of the drone threat that Dan Bongino and others have been raising concerns about, considering the fleet of drones on the eastern seaboard recently, because they have drone mitigation systems in place in Washington, D.C. that are really sophisticated. But he's worried that the agents are exhausted from this frenetic campaign season, and there's no end in sight for them. There's more people to cover now that Trump has a big family, as you know, and so there's more people to cover coming in. But there's also DEI and training concerns. I'll deal with the training first. The training, they have a lot of Homeland Security investigative agents assisting them in this inauguration. They haven't been trained properly by the Secret Service. Sometimes they have actually washed out from their attempts to be Secret Service agents. They failed their polygraph test. There could be an insider threat, and some people are raising that concern, like what happened in New Orleans with that particular incident, being a member of the armed forces who perpetrated that terrible issue. So also there's DEI concerns with a lot of the leadership in 2008. For instance, during Obama's inauguration, they put a lot of Secret Service agents surrounding the motorcade, as some ceremonial contingent out there of junior agents who are not prepared. We're not prepared to really protect the president. They have the inner circle too, surrounding the motorcade, the car, with President Obama. But they don't want to see. The agents are worried that could happen again. They don't want to see DEI protecting any part of the inauguration, including the parade. DEI hires, or not DEI hires, but DEI placement of some ceremonial contingents of Secret Service just to make the agency look, diverse.
Yeah. That's a legitimate concern.
Take a break from diversity for a weekend or one day.
Susan Crabtree, RealClearPolitics.com's national political correspondent. She's the co-author of the new book, Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate your interest. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.